They can't scam you if they can't find you. This video sponsor Incogni can help protect you from identity thefts, hacks, or worse. Get a 60% discount on an annual subscription when you sign up using offer code SKILLUP over at incogni.com/skillup. More details after the video. There's a lot to like about Halo Campaign Evolved, but the most important thing is, this is still, by and large, Halo Combat Evolved. Well, the single-player component of it at least. The enduring genius of the original is still here, and it's still incredibly fun to play through it all these years later. That fun can, at times, be elevated by the inclusion of 4-player campaign co-op, by the enhanced visuals, by some big and small changes to level designs, and by the inclusion of new weapons and new game mechanics like vehicle hijacking. Sometimes an excuse to replay a classic is all you need, and Campaign Evolved is that excuse. I think if you like Halo, you'll enjoy playing through this because you're playing Halo again. But it's never been difficult to replay Halo. That's always been easy owing to the sheer number of times this game has been released, ported, and remastered, culminating in the Master Chief Collection, with that package still being very easily accessible and offering both original and remastered visuals and sound, while still playing beautifully. I think that Campaign Evolved had to clear a certain bar in order to really justify itself. Looking at critic reviews, Steam reviews, and general commentary, this package does clear that bar for many people, but personally, it doesn't for me. Had Halo Campaign Evolved been a truly faithful remake that captured everything that was great about the original and delivered it at higher fidelity, I likely would be recommending it to you. But sadly, many of the changes that Halo Studios commit to here are the wrong changes. The visual uplift delivered here is the strongest part of the offering, but even then it is a double-edged sword. The Unreal Engine delivers more realistic lighting and better outdoor scenery, but the art direction applied to key characters, indoor spaces, Covenant architecture, and Forerunner structures makes Halo look cartoonish in a way that Halo Studios seems to prefer, but that I think is at odds with the more earthy and ancient feeling visual design that defined the original. The overall sound design is a very mixed bag, with the sound mix being muddied, sound effects often massive downgrades, and music is so deprioritized in the mix that it ends up playing a far less important role than it once did in pacing each mission. The ability to aim down sights the assault rifle massively unbalances the weapon sandbox, the removal of health kits makes combat less challenging and less strategic, the Warthog is way less fun to drive, elites are less individually threatening, and higher difficulties rely on throwing more elites at you rather than making each of those elites substantially more deadly. Newly added cutscene dialogue robs scenes of their urgency, and overall cutscene design, sound mixing, and direction is weird and not good. A list like this seems like nitpicking, and I want to be really clear that it is, but when taken in aggregate, all of these changes add up to an experience that is less fun to play through than the original. That really is the most important baseline that any remake needs to hit. The limited ambition of Campaign Evolved is its most disappointing aspect. The chance to make a top-to-bottom remake of Halo was a huge opportunity for both Halo Studios and Halo fans. Did you know the original campaign was planned to have 25 missions? There were some original missions and enemy types that were essentially finished but dropped last minute due to the ship deadline. Imagine if Halo Studios had sought to restore some of that. Forget cut content, what if Halo Studios had looked to augment the campaign experience with their own original missions, fleshing out the story while delivering all new gameplay scenarios? Halo Infinite wasn't perfect, but its open world sandbox style gameplay was by far and away its strongest component. Imagine if even a taste of that had been brought into Campaign Evolved. Instead, the only truly original content we get are 3 prequel missions, and it does pain me to say it, but these missions are truly awful. They are drawn out, recycled, dull, and their approach to characterization and storytelling is actively damaging to the franchise. I think it is very concerning that the worst 3 missions in this entire package are the ones that Halo Studios built from scratch. And then there's the fact that this brand new $50 remake of Halo doesn't ship with any PvP multiplayer. I just can't understand how something like that happens, especially given that this game comes from Halo Studios. If this was an outsourced project handed off to a support studio, I'd be like, okay, fair enough, I guess. But this is Halo's A-team, and this is the studio's first release in 5 years, and likely their only release for the next few years, and it doesn't come with any PvP multiplayer? I think calling this Campaign Evolved is a real misnomer, because even setting aside the absence of multiplayer, there's no evolution here at all. This is still fun to play through because Halo Combat Evolved is always fun. If you want to play through Halo for the first or the 300th time, then this is a way to do it. But you can also really easily play through the Master Chief Collection. The Anniversary Remaster had its own problems too, don't get me wrong, but it still retained the core feel, balance, design elements, and enemy AI that made the original what it was. And having done a back-to-back playthrough of both Campaign Evolved and Anniversary, I just had a better time playing Anniversary. Does that make Campaign Evolved bad? No, it doesn't. But it also doesn't make it something that I'd recommend you go out of your way to experience. Halo Campaign Evolved abandons the blam and slipspace engines on which previous Halo games were built, with Halo Studios making the move to Unreal Engine 5 for this and future Halo projects. Now, contrary to what many people might tell you, there's nothing inherently wrong with Unreal Engine 5. It's just an engine with its own specific traits and trade-offs. It's all about how developers choose to use it. Generally speaking, Halo Studios have adapted this new technology well. They've essentially taken the bones of Halo Reach, so the feel of the Halo series is largely intact, and they've grafted onto it a skin made with Unreal Engine 5. That's an engine that really excels at delivering dense outdoor spaces, convincing water effects, and realistic lighting. Stepping out onto Halo for the first time, it's pretty overwhelming to see just how good it looks. With its dense foliage, detailed rock formations, stark shadows, dust scattering across the base of the Forerunner Bridge, and spray wafting up from the nearby roaring rapids. Whether it's Halo or the Silent Cartographer or Assault on the Control Room, all natural landscapes benefit massively from Unreal Engine 5. A real standout has to be 343 Guilty Spark, which begins in the swamp. The comparison footage here between the Anniversary Edition and the Campaign Evolved Edition is night and day, or night and way better looking night. I think this is an example of Halo Studios reinterpreting a scene rather than just applying new technology to it, and the results are pretty stunning. But this isn't the only artistic success story here, as Halo Studios have smartly used the Flood's corruption as a paintbrush. You'll see this in every mission toward the back end of the game, but the reimagined library is, unsurprisingly, the best example of this, since much of that level has been completely reworked, which gave the art team some license to do some root and branch reimagining. In the original, you approach the library from the bottom, going up level by level, but it's been inverted here, and now as you progress deeper and deeper into the structure, the Flood's corruption will feature more prominently along the walls and ceilings, where before the Flood was present in the library, now they have well and truly claimed it. Given how much 343 stepped back from the Flood with their Halo games, it's kind of ironic that they managed to get this visual design so right, while continuing to take Forerunner and Covenant design in such a gaudy, uninteresting direction, an issue made worse by the natural tendencies of Unreal Engine 5. I think it's helpful to go back to the original Combat Evolved here and look at how Bungie first imagined Covenant spaces. They had a limited but notable range of colors, from grey to blue to this deep purple, and different spaces leaned into these colors, so you had some genuine visual diversity as you moved through the interior of the Truth and Reconciliation. Now, it's purple. Purple walls, floors, doors, ceilings, light purple, dark purple, neon purple, deep purple, but most importantly, wet purple. All the Covenant architecture and hardware has this fugly, slimy, wet look, like the entire ship has been wrapped in some translucent plastic and pressure cleaned with a power washer moments before you arrived. I think this just looks awful. The game's bonus missions were a chance to show off some different Covenant art direction, but the best Halo Studios could come up with was, what if instead of purple, it was white? And that's exactly what they did in certain sections, just swap purple for white without ever really changing anything else. This becomes a little absurd when all of a sudden, without any explanation, it just goes back to being completely purple. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, you'll be in one room and it's all white, and then you'll walk through a door and then it goes back to being purple. No environmental storytelling, no antechamber spaces that might ease the transition, just white on this side of the door, purple on the other. That's it. But it's this slick look that is the worst part of the visual style, and it's something also present in Forerunner architecture. Now, to be clear, criticism of 343's spin on Forerunner architecture, materials, flourishes, lighting, etc., none of this criticism is new. The original Halo couldn't deliver intricate textures or detailed reflections, so its simplistic, brutalistic Forerunner style was the only option available to Bungie. But it also worked really well because its simplicity evoked something ancient. It was steel that also looked like stone, shorn of inessential etchings and built at massive scale. It felt monolithic. Exploring Forerunner spaces felt like raiding ancient temples. It's an art style that was eroded in the Anniversary remaster, but it was entirely abandoned when 343 started laser etching and spit shining every panel of Forerunner steel they could get their hands on. From Halo 4 onwards, 343 decided that the best way they could level up Halo's aesthetic was to increase the amount of detail present in Forerunner stuff, culminating of course in the Prometheans and their intricate skeletal frames. Everyone hated this, everyone, and 343 actually listened. When they delivered Halo Infinite, they made very clear they were moving away from that art style and moving back towards the more ancient, monolithic stone and metal style art that defined the original Forerunner look. And you know what? 343 kind of crushed it. Forerunner structures in Infinite looked fantastic. They did invoke the quiet, ancient awe that previous structures invoked. They were made with steel and stone. Hard light sources were deprioritized in favor of subtle accents, and surfaces diffused the light rather than harshly reflecting it. Look at this example from the opening of Halo Infinite. We still have plenty of detail and polished metal here, but there's also considerable restraint here in that the detail is subject to the scale, and the surfaces seem to capture and hold the light rather than just blast it back at you. Now compare that to various scenes cutscenes from Campaign Evolved's Silent Cartographer. Every surface is the same sheeny metal. There's no texture to the materials. Surfaces seem either harshly lit or not lit at all. When they are lit, there's nothing subtle or beautiful about the way that light is captured and diffused by the surface. It just reflects it. And surfaces are so desperate to reflect every possible light source that it constantly looks like the surfaces themselves are transforming as you move past them. None of this is helped by the fact that both chromatic aberration and film grain are forced on at all times in Campaign Evolved. There is no way to turn it off on console or PC. Combine this with the sort of upscaling that is generally required in order to get Unreal Engine 5 games running well on higher settings and at higher resolutions, and you get this incredibly blurry, noisy image that is just so unpleasant to look at. Halo Infinite is a different game in a different setting with its own art design principles, but there's something really beautiful about 343's rendition of Forerunner architecture in Infinite, and its beauty that exists at both an artistic and technical level. Even if you were to say that this relentless polished steel aesthetic was the original intent of Bungie, I think it was incumbent on Halo Studios to find a way to make it look better than it does here. It's worth noting that along with the move to Unreal Engine 5 comes many of its more frustrating technical issues, though I was lucky enough not to experience too many of them on my high-end PC. A quick scan of the Steam reviews will show you how people on lower-end hardware have fared, with plenty of complaints about poor optimization and regular crashes. These things can be patched though, but you really can't patch how this game looks. While I appreciate the outdoor spaces and a better, more immersive use of the Flood's corruption, the art design underpinning both the Covenant and Forerunner feels like the wrong direction, and the technical approach seems to surrender to the worst proclivities of the Unreal Engine rather than tame them. Halo Infinite was by no means perfect, but artistically it was very much on the right track, whereas I think this is very much the wrong track, and given this whole package is clearly about Halo Studios building an asset pipeline for future titles, none of this fills me with confidence that future Halo games are going to look great.
This is it. Halo's control center.
Have you enjoyed your stay so far, Demon?
I'm equally concerned with how cutscene visuals, dialogue, and overall direction has been handled here in Campaign Evolved. For me, the problems start really early in the first major cutscene. Take a look at how they intro Sergeant Johnson.
You heard the lady. Move like you got a purpose.
Why is he facing away from his troops when he says this? Why is he mogging the camera? Why is he smiling? This is so fucking weird. This is the first time we're ever meant to see Sergeant Johnson, and it's handled like we already know this person. It's almost like when a celebrity makes a surprise cameo on a sitcom or something.
You heard the lady. Move like you got a purpose.
And then like a moment later, there's this iconic Greenhorns line. Like, take a look at how it's handled in the original.
Now move it out. Double time.
Attention all personnel. We are re-engaging the enemy. External and internal contact imminent.
All you greenhorns who wanted to see Covenant up close, this is gonna be your lucky day.
Notice how Johnson is addressing troops who have just run past him and into the space in front of him. Now here's how Campaign Evolved handles it.
Now move it out. Double time. Woo, here we go.
Attention all personnel. We are re-engaging the enemy. External and internal contact imminent.
All you greenhorns who wanted to see Covenant up close, this is gonna be your lucky day.
Now I ask you, who is Johnson speaking to here? His troops have already left because he told them to. He then turned around to face away from where they're running. Who is he addressing when he says this? I know it sounds nitpicky, but this sort of amateurish directorial hand can be felt in basically all of the cutscenes. I mean, take a scene a moment later, also featuring Johnson. Watch what he does after he finishes talking.
Keep your eyes downrange, fingers on the triggers, and we'll all go home in one piece.
Johnson, are you okay, buddy? Are you having some sort of PTSD attack, remembering Reach or something? What's going on here? This speaks to one of the biggest issues with these cutscenes, pacing. Take a look at this exchange at the end of the library and notice how much time there is between when each character talks.
Hold on. He's a friend.
Oh, I didn't realize. He's your pal, is he? Your chum? Do you have any idea what that bastard almost made you do?
Yes. Activate Halo's defenses and destroy the Flood, which is why we brought the index to the control center.
You mean this?
A construct in the core that is absolutely unacceptable.
And yet...
What impertinence! I shall purge you at once.
You sure that's a good idea?
How dare you?
Do what? I have the index. You can just float and sputter.
Enough.
Believe it or not, this same exchange in the original was literally half the length while having the exact same dialogue, and this sort of pacing is present throughout most of the cutscenes, and it really robs them of their urgency and their punchiness. OG Halo's cutscenes move with the same briskness that the gameplay did, but that's been totally lost here in Campaign Evolved. The remake also really struggles to develop compelling action sequences. That one with Sergeant Johnson in the hallway is a good example, but here's another. Now, what exactly were these elites doing just kind of standing here? And couldn't we have had like a few camera cuts and maybe some close-ups to build some tension? I don't know. It's all a very far cry from the Halo 2 anniversary cutscenes remastered 12 years ago by Blur.
And we most definitely regret the Corps just blew up our raggedy-ass fleet. Hoorah!
Regret is a name, Sergeant. The name of one of the Covenant's religious leaders, a prophet. He's on that carrier, and he's calling for help.
Grid Kilo 2-3 is hot. Recommend mission abort.
Roger, Recon. It's your call, Sarge.
We're going in. Get tactical, Marines!
Just like that Halo 2 cutscene I just showed you, Sergeant Johnson has a bit of a habit of stealing every scene he's in. That's in large part down to the incredible voice work of David Scully, but he's since retired and now the role is being filled by Ken St. John, who I think actually does a pretty good job. Unfortunately, the people writing Sergeant Johnson's new dialogue in the bonus missions are not doing a good job. The setup here is that Chief and Johnson are boarding a Covenant capital ship to extract intel that would lead them to the Covenant homeworld. It's a sort of buddy cop dynamic between Johnson and Chief. Here's how they intro Johnson.
Been a while since I gotta take old Sophie out for a spin. Are you ready to get to it?
After that, the banter between the two of them comes pretty thick and fast.
We keep quiet and play our cards right, we'll be in, out, and back by dinner.
You're always hungry.
Damn right I am.
And the hits keep on coming.
Middle on your chest and treat.
Is that a threat, Sergeant Major?
Just gonna hurt my feelings, huh? I see how it is.
And look, nothing inherently wrong with this stuff, but it does imply a level of familiarity between Chief and Johnson that isn't at all carried over into the main campaign. I mean, there's none of this banter when they fight alongside each other on Halo, and in fact, the first time Johnson sees Chief during the mission Halo, he calls him Sir.
It's a mess, sir. We're scattered all over this valley. We called for evac, but until you showed up, I thought we were cooked.
It also presents a wildly different characterization of Chief that isn't at all compatible with the campaign. Chief doesn't talk like this the first time we meet him. In fact, he barely talks at all, and it's only in the later games that he starts to open up more. How did this writers think this characterization would be at all congruent with everything that follows it? It's also an issue that affects Cortana, though in a more subtle way. Earlier in those comparisons I showed you, you might have noticed that Cortana's delivery is very different here in the remake. In the original, Jen Taylor's performance is less airy, less playful. There's less range in her tone, timbre, and meter. She obviously received very different direction here in Campaign Evolved, and the result is a Cortana that already feels much more human, which undermines a lot of the development that Cortana goes through in later Halo entries.
You all right?
Never been better. You can't imagine the wealth of information, the knowledge. So much, so fast. It's glorious.
By far the most concerning aspect of Campaign Evolved's writing are the bonus missions, because these are the missions that Halo Studios wrote from scratch. Here's just one example.
Here you can observe the true beauty of the Covenant. Our collective strength a reflection of each member's devotion, the tenacity of the Ungoi, the cleverness of the Highguard, the Sangheili, long our partner since the Writ of Union, the burning edge of the Covenant's blade.
Personally, I find this scene to be very silly. Like, why are Chief and Johnson just standing there instead of shooting them? Why is the Prophet introducing each race like an announcer at a boxing match? Why is the Elite flexing and roaring like someone hit his emote button? I spoke earlier about 343's Halo looking more cartoonish, but they also write Halo like a cartoon. Compare this to the tight, high-stakes brevity of Halo 1, or the more cinematically inspired dialogue and sequences of Halo 2 and 3, and this just feels like a parody of Halo, the sort of thing you'd find in an animated Netflix adaptation, and not a very good one. I know it seems nitpicky to focus on Cortana's tone of voice, Chief's quips, Johnson's 1,000-yard stare, or the amount of split seconds between lines of dialogue, but all this stuff does add up. This game is a warm-up for the future of Halo, and here we have mishandled characters, terrible narrative choices, and extraordinarily bad cutscene direction. And it's all couched in fairly limited ambitions, by the way. Halo Studios weren't looking to add new campaign missions, or restore the most requested cut content, or add new campaign scenes to further flesh out the story. Outside of the bonus missions, it was about taking what Bungie had done and making it better, and I think they just made it worse. And honestly, I think the storytelling in the bonus missions did way more harm than good. Where I think things like Covenant and Forerunner art design, storytelling, characterization, and cutscene direction are all steps back here in Campaign Evolved, I would say that many of the gameplay changes are more horizontal steps, delivering a remix package that works well enough on its own terms, but I do think those terms are inherently less fun and less interesting than the terms laid down by Bungie all those years ago. I'm not going to cover everything here because honestly there's just too much, but there are a few buckets I'll tackle: level design changes, weapon sandbox changes, and enemy behavior, and we'll sort of draw from these buckets as we talk about different parts of the package. Campaign Evolved is very, very faithful to the original level designs in the sense that if you haven't played Halo recently, you might think that they made no changes at all, except to the library, of course, which is unmistakably different. The truth is, though, Campaign Evolved does make some subtle changes to levels, largely focused on the goal of reducing repetitiveness and backtracking. These changes are welcome, but they don't really change the overall feel of missions all that much. The library is where Halo Studios have done their most ambitious reimagining, and overall, I think it's a success. As I mentioned earlier, the inversion of the mission path now going from top to bottom feels right when we're talking about an infectious corruption, and the way that corruption becomes more visible as you get deeper is great environmental storytelling. The changes to the way the level plays are also welcome in that it has more varied layouts and a broader range of encounters. It's still repetitive in the sense that it mainly still is hallways and flood, but it does manage to dress that repetition up pretty well. What undermines a lot of this good work are changes to the weapon, ability, and enemy sandboxes. For one thing, the Flood are way less aggressive here in Campaign Evolved. They don't rush you as fast or as often, they don't leap as often, and they're generally pretty happy to kind of slowly run up to you, giving you more than enough time to mow them down. They're also much less likely to reach you now since Chief can do something that he couldn't do in the original, sprint. This is actually a good change in many other parts of the game since being able to move more swiftly across space feels very in keeping with the potential of a Spartan, and it doesn't upset Covenant and counterbalance all that much. But against the Flood, it's highly disruptive because their moveset and balancing was predicated on you moving slowly, and now you can just outrun them, which makes them far less oppressive. It's funny, I went back and played the OG library right after playing the remake, and while the atmosphere of the remake was more oppressive, the gameplay feel of the original was far more oppressive because it felt like I was being constantly chased down and suffocated by the Flood. Changes to the weapon sandbox cause their own problems. By far and away, the biggest change that Campaign Evolved makes to weapons is that the assault rifle can now be aimed down sights, and it's extremely accurate at range. I think this is a really bad change because even with its reduced magazine size, it's still far too powerful and far too versatile now. It was meant to be a weapon that was useful at close to medium ranges, but now it's useful at close, medium, and far ranges. In the original library, you didn't have many long-range weapon options, so you were using the AR at medium range and the shotgun up close. Now you can reliably hit the Flood at range, and along with the less aggressive Flood and your ability to outrun them, the library is a better looking level with more layout and encounter diversity, but its core gameplay identity has been significantly watered down. I really really do think this AR change is terrible. There is a reason the battle rifle was a burst fire weapon. That was the trade-off for its long-range potential. Now, the AR doesn't have any trade-offs because its reduced mag is still big enough to make the weapon very potent. I felt this most keenly in the opening moments of the Silent Cartographer. In the original, your assault rifle was useless the moment you landed on the beach because targets were so distant, and it forced you to pull out your Magnum, which was your default scoped weapon. Now, you don't need to do that, and you can just ride the AR the whole time. And this wouldn't be such a problem if the Elite's AI wasn't so neutered. I did my full playthrough of Campaign Evolved, and then I immediately booted up the Anniversary More mission and proceeded to get my shit completely pushed in by the first Elite I encountered, the one in the cafeteria. It instantly reminded me how fast these guys are, how accurate they are, how far they'll run in order to reposition, how well placed their grenades are. They're properly fierce enemies, and sadly, Campaign Evolved's Elites do not hold a candle to them. Here's some clips showcasing general Elite behavior on heroic difficulty during Truth and Reconciliation.
Way better than the training sim. Try aiming that weapon.
See what I mean? The Elites just don't really move. They don't sidestep enough or fall back enough. And that last clip is quite illustrative of how Halo Studios are bootstrapping difficulty here, because instead of making Elites individually more challenging, they're just throwing more of them at you. It's still challenging, don't get me wrong. I'm certainly not saying that Campaign Evolved is easy, but its difficulty model is significantly less interesting than the iconic, unforgettable AI-driven difficulty that defined the original game. I will say though that Hunter AI has been overhauled, and I personally think it's an upgrade. Before, they were basically just charging bulls and it was really easy to juke them as a Matador would. Now they're much harder to put into that melee charge animation, and they protect their front a lot more. It's harder to fight them now in ways that I appreciate, even if it does change the nature of your encounters with them. On the point of difficulty, Campaign Evolved makes another big change, the removal of health packs in favor of endlessly recharging health. I understand that this is probably going to be seen by many, particularly new players, as a logical quality of life change that looks to bring the game up to modern standards, but finite health was an important system because it forced you to smartly engage rather than just throw yourself at enemies before retreating and waiting for a full recharge. A bad push might get a pesky elite down, but if you were reckless, you'd have less health for the next engagement, and so your margin for error would be slimmer. When you combine this endless health system with your increased effectiveness at range, your ability to sprint out of trouble, and the less aggressive and less intelligent enemy AI, and you get a game that feels like it's more about throughput than tactics. Like I said, Campaign Evolved is hard, but it's hard in ways that feel more like a looter shooter with its focus on high enemy counts and high health pools. Halo Combat Evolved was made of very different stuff, and it's a shame the remake doesn't recapture that. Outside of that, there are a lot of little things that keep piling up into very big things. Take UI, for example. It was super clean before with only the most essential information on screen, all of it condensed into 3 corners. Now I've got stuff in all 4 corners and something at the top middle of my screen. Do I need to constantly see my objective written up there? Do I need to see images of the 2 guns I'm carrying when I can already see one of those guns in my actual hands? Do I need an entire section of the UI devoted to the number of grenades I'm carrying? All of this stuff just feels like change for change's sake. The world UI is also regularly immersion breaking since it'll now highlight weapons on the ground, not something I ever needed before, and I still don't need it now. I can already see them laying on the ground, so having a little line come up from out of them is just annoying. More frequent objective markers are also unnecessary and remove what little feeling of exploration the original sometimes offered, but the worst offenders are the objective markers over enemy heads. Just look at how they absolutely ruin this moment when you find the brig in Truth and Reconciliation.
What's up, Chief? The Covenant guards are using some kind of stealth armor.
Don't worry, Captain Keys, I know how to handle invisible enemies. I'll just look at the giant red markers over their goddamn heads. How the hell did this make it into the game? The Warthog, man, this thing is just so much less fun to drive in the remake. It's so much heavier, it's less responsive, it's less bouncy. It's kind of hard to mess up when driving this thing, whereas the more reactive original Hog resulted in so many fun, silly moments in either co-op or PvP. Oh, and by the way, this is the animation for when you want to switch seats.
Enemy dropship!
Showtime!
I think the last thing that really bugged me is the sound design work here. this is how the assault rifle sounds in Campaign Evolved. Now listen to a whole bunch of assault rifles during this scene. Do any of those sound like the AR? They just sound like generic machine guns, right? Here's how the sniper rifle sounds in the Anniversary Edition. And now, here's how it sounds in the remake. Holy downgrade. The general audio mix for dialogue is also really inconsistent. Here's how 343 Guilty Spark sounds most of the time during your run-through of the library. I literally couldn't even hear what he was saying, and I had to kind of like trying to read the subtitles while also fighting the flood, which made it super annoying. The biggest mix error though is the music, and honestly this is heartbreaking. I mean, for example, the iconic Halo percussive track. Here's how it sounds the very first time you hear it in the original. And now, here's how it sounds the first time you hear it in Campaign Evolved. What the fuck, man? You can barely hear it here. It's like Halo Studios are embarrassed of it or something. This is an issue that affects multiple tracks throughout the game, and as such, the iconic Halo soundtrack feels pushed into the background rather than proudly profiled and celebrated in the foreground. Is this a nitpick? The volume levels of music at specific points during missions? I mean, obviously, yeah, but it's fucking Halo music, man. This music changed video games. This music changed lives. If you do play through Campaign Evolved and then you go back and play the original, I guarantee you will listen to that old soundscape and that old audio mix, and you will think to yourself, now that's what I'm talking about. Campaign Evolved might gently pluck at your heartstrings, but that original is going to shred them like Steve Vai. And I think that is the perfect metaphor, because in 2004, Bungie looked at one of the greatest, most perfect theme songs in video game history and said, this can be better. Whereas 22 years later, we're looking at Halo Studios being like, hey guys, you forgot to turn the volume up. Hearing that track, that is how Halo is supposed to make you feel. And I do come back to what I said at the top. For many people, Campaign Evolved is making them feel that. Whether it's someone playing Halo for the very first time on PS5, or it's a longtime fan doing their 100th legendary playthrough, Campaign Evolved does deliver so much of what made the original game so great. And there are meaningful additions too. The fidelity of outdoor spaces, the particle and lighting effects during combat encounters, the increased unit counts on screen making certain encounters feel bigger and more spectacular than ever. 4-player campaign co-op is no joke and can be a fantastic way to experience this if you have a group of friends who are willing, and 2-player couch co-op is still a thing, though each person does need to have their own Microsoft account, which is very annoying and very unnecessary. Campaign Evolved shines most in its handling of the flood levels, where the redesigned library and the increased focus on the flood's corruption tells a clearer visual story in the game's later levels, combined with some smart interventions into specific level layouts and objectives, and the addition of new weapons and new mechanics like vehicle hijacking, and you've got a package that well and truly hangs together on its own merits. But none of these changes are so meaningful that they substantially added to my enjoyment of Halo, because many of them came with downsides. I don't love the art design here, and I think the shiny, blurry visuals are often a distracting eyesore. I think the cutscenes are woeful. They are poorly paced and uninspired. At times they look unfinished. Actual gameplay offers a more exciting rendition of Halo action than the cutscenes can ever come close to, and comparisons to Blur's 2012 cutscenes seem almost cruel given the distance in quality. The approach to characterization is wildly inconsistent, with the prequel bonus missions being especially egregious, delivering renditions of Chief and Johnson that are incompatible with the main campaign missions that follow them. Changes to the weapon, health, and ability sandboxes often do more harm than good, and changes to both Elite and Flood AI results in a less interesting difficulty model that makes Campaign Evolved feel more like a looter shooter than a classic Halo experience. I probably would have worried less about these things if Halo Studios had looked to offer a new, interesting spin on the campaign with restored cut content, newly imagined campaign content, or new load-bearing gameplay systems, but Campaign Evolved doesn't deliver any of that. The closest it gets are these bonus missions, and I haven't spoken much about them during this review because honestly, the less said about them, the better. It's 3 missions, but they're also similar. It feels like you're just doing one big mission, and it really just feels like reheated Truth and Reconciliation, only now with these awkward cutscenes and this ill-fitting buddy cop dynamic between Chief and Johnson. As an audition for what we can expect from future Halo Studios games, these missions are not going to fill anyone with much optimism. If you want to play Halo, I really recommend the Master Chief Collection. It has its own problems, sure, but it has 6 games, it has multiplayer, it runs perfectly on a range of hardware, and it is substantially cheaper than campaign Evolved. The Master Chief Collection is a pretty remarkable package, and even with its issues, I still think it's the best and or easiest way to experience the original Combat Evolved campaign. Campaign Evolved is also another perfectly fine way to experience the original campaign, but for me personally, I think its compromises are too significant and its sacrifices are too great. While there's still some fun to be had here, I think this is ultimately just a really big missed opportunity, and I really hope that Halo Studios commit themselves to the task of making new Halo games, because we need more of those, a hell of a lot more than we need a Halo 2 remake that tinkers around the edges of a game that still looks and plays great all these years later. Your personal data is everywhere, whether you like it or not, but this video's sponsor, Incogni, can help get a lot of that data removed from places you don't want it to be, resulting in less spam, fewer scams, and a safer online presence. Incogni makes it super simple. You sign up, you enter your details, you grant it the required permissions, and after that, Incogni steps in and sends out hundreds of automated requests to reclaim your data. Incogni has sent out automated requests on my behalf, and as a result, my data has been removed from 178 places. 178! I didn't know that 178 sites had my data. If I was to have submitted all of those requests myself, doing all the paperwork and back and forth, it would have taken me around 128 hours, making Incogni incredibly well priced given how much value it delivers. Also, since data can reappear on sites when it's already been taken down, Incogni will circle back and repeatedly remove it for you, saving you even more time and energy. And that's just their automated process, where they also have a custom removals option, which gives you even more agency over who has your info. You can tell Incogni precisely where to remove your personal data from, and Incogni will work to make that happen. Some exclusions apply for this service, but it gives another layer of protection and privacy. It's super easy, super effective, and best of all, super affordable. You can use offer code SKILLUP at incogni.com/skillup to get 60% off an annual subscription. Take your personal data back and get a 60% discount while doing it by visiting incogni.com/skillup and using offer code SKILLUP at checkout. Thanks Incogni for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.